All right, ladies, gentlemen, wonderful human beings. We're going to get started. For those of you who haven't directly met me before, I'm Lauren Fearman. I'm the superintendent for the Two Rivers Supervisory Union, and we're going to give you an opportunity to talk with our two finalists for the Cavendish Town Elementary School principal position. And you're first going to speak with Amy Bowen, and then we will have another finalist come in approximately 45 minutes. So I've got a couple of things for you before we get started. Amy will say a few words to introduce herself. After that, we're going to take questions. We'll give anybody an opportunity to ask a question, and we'll wait for people to ask second questions until everybody has had a chance to ask at least one. You don't have to ask a question. So usually we wind up with people who are asking more than one, but if you have multiple questions, I'm going to ask you to ask one, and then wait to be sure that everybody gets a chance before you do the next one. Let's see, these sessions are being recorded, and those recordings will be available on the TRSU website as soon as we can get them up tonight. They will stay up for several days, but we will accept feedback only through 5 o'clock tomorrow. At the end of this session, you will be handed you can have them right now if you would like them, a paper form that you can fill out if you want to. You can also go online. Do you want to pass these around? You can email me, lauren.fearman@trsu.org, with feedback. You can also call the TRSU, my office, which is 802-875-3365, to give me feedback. There is also a link on the TRSU website that you can click on to provide feedback through a form. So by paper, by Google form, by email, or by phone, and we'll take feedback from people through tomorrow afternoon. Let's see, we have some school board members who are present here, and you are welcome to ask questions. Please remember, though, this isn't an official board meeting, so no discussion with each other or anyone else of board business. We ask that everybody is, as I know you will be, because people always are, civil and respectful to each other, to our candidates. Let's see. And if you have questions, either while this is going on or afterwards about how to give me feedback, just let me know. After 45 minutes, Amy will be going on Zoom to meet with people who were on Zoom, and the other candidate will come in here. She will be on Zoom at the moment. She'll come in here to talk with you. Any questions about procedures? All right, I'll sit down and be quiet, and as I said, you're welcome to stand up, walk around wherever you want to be.
I have a teacher spirit, so I'm always on the move. It's hard for me to sit for a prolonged time. So can I just start?
Please do.
So it's so hard to sort of capture 22 years of my life's work as concisely as I can, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So I have two boys. First off, on the personal side, they're going to be 11 and 13. And they will be attending Killington Elementary, and my older one will be going to Woodstock. And my husband and I have had a lifelong dream of moving to Vermont. We purchased a very old farmhouse on some acreage and a pond, and my husband will be retiring very early from his career in law enforcement to sort of restore the home and help me on the home front and support me as I embrace my new community and my new school that I will be working with. So we are super excited. My husband's coming out in May to start the construction, and I will be out with the boys shortly after. And you may ask, why Vermont? So I currently live in Northern California in a rural part. We're about 30 minutes south of the snow line. And my current job is the Director of Special Programs for what is considered in California a small rural district. When we compare that to Vermont, it's not quite as small as what we're used to over here on the East Coast. So what does a Director of Special Programs do? So I've been in this role 5 years. I'm a district office level administrator. So I oversee the budget of multiple federal and state programs, such as McKinney-Vento, which is our homeless program, Foster Youth, Title I, which is the funding that is issued to schools that have a certain percentage of socioeconomic students that have a higher need and need of resources. So I oversee that program, and I work alongside principals. So now my role is to support the site principals and work side by side with them. and also support professional development district-wide at all of our different sites, just to name a few. I'm also the director of our summer program, so I'm the principal/director. We have a very robust summer program in our district of about 450 students. We hold that at a site for at least 1 month. So I'm the principal of that program, and I also mentor new administrators who want to be an administrator but don't have experience yet. So I train them on how to build program, because in essence, summer school, you're building a school and you're taking it down in a short time span. So that's my current role. I'm watching the clock. Prior to that, I was an associate principal at a middle school. So I did that for 2 years. That's where you learn to really work under some serious time pressures, and you learn to multitask. You learn the process of teacher evaluation and supervision. I was responsible for the safety of the school, and I'm proud to say I was able to evacuate a school of 850 students and 70 employees in 15 minutes. Safely, we had an online program that we used for that. It was a very well-oiled machine that I won't take all the credit for. Part of those systems were in place before I got there. But that's no easy task to do, and to have, it was just the principal and I. So California, it's 850 students. There is 1 associate principal and 1 principal, no dean of students, nothing. So you command the ship together, side by side. I was responsible for all student discipline, suspension, expulsion, and I'm happy to say that America, Vermont, California are all starting to move to a less punitive system and a more restorative justice approach, where you're working with kids with an empathetic viewpoint and looking at alternative ways to teach kids when they make mistakes, really. Now, at the same time, there are egregious things that kids sometimes do that are so egregious that you have to take action in a more traditional sense. So before that, I was an instructional coach for another district in rural California. I did that for 1 year, where that was the sort of segue between teaching and administration. So I recommend anybody that is a teacher that wants to go into administration, be an instructional coach first, because it's a perfect segue between the two. So for a year, I was the coach of other teachers in my district, specifically in literacy and reading, especially for at-risk students. Prior to that, I was a 7th and 8th grade history and English teacher for about 10 years. Prior to that, I started my career in San Francisco with 43 students in my 6th grade class, downtown, very urban environment, not a blade of grass anywhere, which really bothered me. So I did that for 3 years. I love 6th grade. I love 6th grade curriculum. So definitely, the older kids are definitely my wheelhouse. So I've been talking for 5 minutes, so I'm gonna stop on that one, and then we'll go to questions from the field. That's 22 years in a nutshell right there. Yeah.
You started to say why Vermont, but you didn't finish, so I'd like to hear why Vermont and why Cavendish Town Elementary School.
Absolutely. This school is something that I've dreamt about for many, many years. Having had experienced a very large school, when you have 850 students and a very large staff, it's very hard to have intimate relationships. So I've been looking very carefully, very patiently for a very small school in the country within 40 minutes of my home. So I started researching Cavendish when it appeared and looking at the practices that the school has in place. I was impressed. The scores here are some of the best that I've seen in Vermont. Really good things are happening. To see 65% proficient and advanced in some of, according to the Smarter Balance assessment. To see that the Two River Supervisory Union has some really good things in place with proficiency standards, right? And working at preparing kids to be career and college ready. And then you look at the statistics of how many students are high need in this school as well. And that is an incredible feat. And you walk on this campus, there is a sense of calm and excellence. I can tell you I've been in hundreds of schools in California. I visited many schools in Vermont. When you walk on this campus, there's a certain feeling that you get. And it's the feeling that I want to be part of, right? And you just kind of know where excellent people are. The teachers here are rocking it, I have to say. I spent the whole day here. I saw one class, that teacher was really pushing the kids. They were learning about Hopi Indians. And she just didn't stop at the first answer. She pushed them to elaborate and to clarify. I walked into another class, they were doing something completely different. It was math. They're looking at acute angles and obtuse angles. And the teacher wasn't giving the answer. The kids had straws, and they were manipulating the straw that had a pipe cleaner inside to figure out what the angles are. And I'm like, oh goodness, I hope they don't ask me a question, because I kind of forgot about these rules, you know? But they were learning on their own, doing inquiry-based learning. And I look for those kinds of things. I look at, is the teacher questioning the kids at different levels? There are depths of knowledge that you can ask questions at. And today what I witnessed is the teachers are on top of it. They know how to scaffold their questions and to meet the needs of the various kids in the class. So I want a small school that feels like a family. This is my life's work. I'm not looking, no offense to Lauren, I don't want to be a superintendent. Most people say, well, you've already made it to the district office. Everybody's trying to get there. Why do you want to go back to a school? I miss the kids. And the farther you move up in administration, the farther you get away from the front lines of teaching and learning. And I got into this business 22 years ago because I love the art of teaching. And when people ask me, what do you do? The first response is teacher, because you never stop that. That's always in your heart. So I would say in closing, the family-like atmosphere here, all of those wonderful qualities that I witnessed today, and the ability for me to watch children for 7 years of their life grow up. Nobody else gets that but the school principal, right? And maybe some of the paraprofessional and the secretary, right? But teachers have that for a year. I love to see kids when they're this big, and now they're graduating from school, and you watch them grow up side by side with the parents. And you just don't get that in a bigger school, right? And this school would afford me that opportunity. I'm a very relational person. So I want to know families. I want to know this community. I want to attend the basketball games. And I want to finish my career here, I'll say that. This is the hardest move I've ever made across the country, but I know it's right for my family. I know this school is right for me, and I will commit to you longevity, right? It is so hard to build things and build relationships and know families, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done, and I don't want to do it again. So I'm telling you, if you're looking for somebody that is in for the long run, to help continue the momentum, to help recover from what we've experienced the last 2 years, because we've experienced a lot as a country and as a school system. So I just want you to know that as well. So that was a long-winded answer. It's so hard not to ramble.
You covered a lot. I do want to say,
Yes.
you're right, for years, my kids have graduated from here years ago, but for years, the teachers have been excellent in this school. They've always had highest test scores for 25 years that I've been involved. And the teachers do watch the kids start at the beginning and graduate. They are all there throughout the year. So you really pinpointed a lot of strengths that this school has.
Fantastic, honestly.
So I'll tack on to that. That was actually one of my questions that I was going to ask, but this is good. You described the school process and the learning process, and you got to experience some of that here today. How do you bring, and what is your experience and your plan on bringing the parents into that equation?
Right, I think we're suffering a lot because of the pandemic. We haven't been able to be together, really, and have the wonderful events and things that we have. I think that's coming back, and we're coming around the bend where we might feel safe doing that and having our community events. Really, a school is the center of the community, especially in a place like Cavendish, right? This is where everybody meets and fun things happen. So I think sports will help, and all of us being able to attend games together. And I think it's just being present and being responsive, right? And listening to parents. We may end up disagreeing on what the solution is for whatever we're discussing, but you gotta listen to people. And people know when you're authentic, right? People know when you're sincere and you care. So I think it's being present in the community as much as possible, listening to people. I'd like to start, I don't know if this exists a lot, but I'm all about voice and having things like culture and climate committee. But that takes time for me to spend. I need time here to see what are the patterns and trends from talking to people, especially the parent community. What are the fears? What are the triumphs? What are the things that we love? And what are the things that we don't want to turn the other cheek to, that we want to address? Because little things turn into big things eventually, right? So I'd love to start, if we felt like that was a need, a culture and climate committee. On the parent, we could have a mixed group with parents, staff members, so on and so forth, or a family and community engagement committee. I could go on and on about my ideas about fun events that I've done in the past, but it's not my school. If you choose me as your principal, it's our school, And I want to know what has been done and what the whole community wants. I'm not somebody that's going to come and do things onto you. We do things together as a community. And I'm the new kid on the block. Who wants the new kid on the block coming and bossing everybody around, right? You got to earn your keep first and just listen and understand the culture of what's happening. Thank you for your question.
Hi, I apologize, I came in late, so I actually missed your name. What is-
Amy Boren.
I'm sorry?
Amy Boren.
Amy
Not
Boren.
boring.
Chris Marks, nice to meet you. This is my son's 6th year here, and sadly, next year will be his last. So, if you were to become the principal, and he were to come home in the first week of school next year, and we said, hey, what's Miss Boren like? What would you hope that he would say?
They probably say, she's so spunky and she's funny and she's always in my classroom. And I heard a couple kids even today after I left the class, they're like, she's really nice. It was whoever was teaching Native American history, and they were talking about the Hopi Indians, and I kind of chimed in and talked about the Indians that I've experienced on the West Coast called the Maidu, and we had a discussion about it, and I heard them say, she's really nice. So I think I'm on the right track, right?
Yeah.
But in general, how people would describe me, I'm fun, I'm tenacious, spunky. I love kids, right? Kids should be surrounded by happy, positive people. Now, you can't be 100% all the time. That's just not possible, right? But I think that's what most people say. And I feel like outside of what the kids would say, I've always had a very strong moral compass. I've been doing administration for 7 years now. And I remember while I was going through the admin program 8 years ago and getting my master's, they said, you're gonna be faced with some really difficult times and some difficult situations. No matter what, when you hit the gray area and you're not sure what to do, you put the students first. And you're not going to steer wrong if you put them first. And sometimes people don't agree with the decision. And what's really important to me is when you hit those decisions that you have to make and there's no clear path and you're weighing out the pros and cons on whatever it is. The other thing that's really important is to have a strong advisory council around you. So for me right now in my current role, it's the superintendent, it's the director of curriculum, and it's some very close colleagues that I have that are principals. So I would want to network as quickly as I could to build what I call the alliances to help you make decisions. And we're so much better together than we are apart, and administration is hard, right? It's challenging. And sometimes you have to be vulnerable and let your colleague know, like another principal, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's the direction I think I want to go. Am I on the right track, right? So that would be something that I would want from Lauren and the overall community, is making sure that I have strong. I would love to contact the principal that was principal here for over 30 years and have him mentor me. I was eating lunch here in Cavendish. I was talking to this wonderful couple who were parents of the school, and they went on and on about how wonderful that principal is. So I would be delighted to spend time with him and have him mentor me and talk about some of the things that he did. I'm old-fashioned that way. We need to learn from those that came before us.
Been here for 35 years.
Yeah.
And I've been here almost as long.
I honestly look around Cavendish and my new home, and sometimes I can't believe that this is gonna be my home. Like, I look at the icy rivers where I'm driving, and it's just so darn beautiful that I'm proud already, and I haven't even gotten here. It's such a special place.
She hasn't been through a mudsuit.
No, I haven't. We're going so young and so naive. I have read about it.
We have like 85 miles of dirt roads here in Cavendish. Do you know that?
However, my farmhouse is on the main road where the bus stop comes. I did consider that because I almost bought a house right here by Singleton's.
Yeah.
Up on the hill. But there was a long driveway. My husband's like, oh, just get a snowplow and this and that. And I'm like, no. Yeah. So I ended up, it was a toss-up between the home in Cavendish and the one in Killington. We wanted to be close to either Okemos. I don't say that right yet. See, now you're like, okay, she's got a lot to learn. But yeah.
You mentioned a lot about your relationship with children. Can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with adults? Since you will be the leader of the school, that's going to be a key piece.
Well, you have to be tenacious, you have to be tough, but you have to be a good listener too and a people person in this business, right? I mean, there's so many different people that you work with from all walks of life, all different age groups. So you have to kind of be good at both, right? But I think that's definitely a strength of mine. I'm a people person. I come from a huge Italian family. My father was born in Italy. I speak Italian, so if anybody wants to go on a trip, were you the one in class today? We were talking a little bit of Spanish and Italian in class. So I'm good with people. You have to be in this business. If you're not good with people and children, you're probably in the wrong place, right? But back to that concept of the moral compass. There are times where I've had to have very difficult conversations with really wonderful people and really wonderful teachers that were maybe brand new to the profession that needed some improvement, right? Because the kids deserve excellence. And those are not easy conversations to have, but that's why you're the leader. And you get better over it through time, having those conversations. But I think if you're sincere and you're honest and you build strong relationships with the adults, when you need to have those difficult conversations, it's a lot easier. If you're not present and you're in your office all of the time, people don't trust you. You have to be present and build that camaraderie. Does that answer it? Yes. Let me know if you want me to elaborate. I'm working on concise answers.
You're doing a great job.
Yes.
If I can ask you a hypothetical question?
Yes.
So, hypothetical educational situation, there's a disagreement between the teachers and the superintendent over how to solve this. Who do you side with?
I think you listen to both sides and you make your own judgment in the end, right? You have to take all voices in. If there's still a disagreement, you discuss it, right? But she ultimately is my supervisor as well, so you have to weigh in those kinds of things too. But sometimes you respectfully agree and disagree. Again, you make an argument for whatever the issue is by putting students first. It's not easy, but that's your moral compass, right? And I have children too, and I'm a far better educator now that I'm a parent. When I first started in this business, I wasn't a parent. I was so darn judgmental. A kid didn't do his homework. I'm like, what's wrong with those slacker parents? Now I have 2 boys are missing homework here and there, and I understand, right? So those, I always try and say, if that was my child, how would I want the issue resolved? But again, sometimes it's gray area. And you weigh the things out and you argue for what you feel. You have to be strong that way. Hi.
Hi.
Gabriel?
Yes. Hey, you remember me.
Gabriele.
I'm already liking you.
If the principal
Sorry,
knows
no
your name,
offense.
buddy.
No offense.
Today, were we speaking Spanish and Italian, Gabriel?
Huh?
Were we speaking together today a little bit of Spanish?
Yes.
Sí? Sí puedo un poquito.
Okay.
Okay.
You only.
Una pregunta.
Is there anything you'd like to bring from your experience from other schools to Cavendish?
I didn't hear the first part.
Oh, sorry. Is there anything you would like to bring to Cavendish that you had in California?
I have so many ideas and fun things that I've done in the past. I love events. So on the side, when I first became a teacher, I worked for a wedding company. So we would do big parties and big weddings and cater the food. So I learned how to do lots of event coordination that way. So one of the things I would love to bring, and of course, maybe you already have this going on, but I used to do a massive literacy festival, all Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory theme. So the older kids, like the 6th and 5th grade, would go and read to the younger kids, like once a week for like 2 months. We would read Curious George Goes to the Candy Store, Amelia Bedelia Bakes a Cake, Chocolate Fever, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, all on different levels. And through the years, I was able through the event to raise money to build class sets of literature. So it was just fantastic. And at that time, the older kids that I was bringing to read to the younger kids were at-risk readers. So they were below grade level, and it was so fantastic to see them in a leadership role. So the kids would go for a few months, and it would all culminate in a Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory Literacy Festival. So we had a room like this, and I'd convert it into Willy Wonka's, you know, the opening scene where it's like everything's made of chocolate and candy, and it was fantastic. And the kids would rotate around to do different stops. So one of the stops would be making bookworms, because it's a literacy festival, except we would use Rice Krispie treats and those rainbow fruit roll-ups, and we would make bookworms, right? And then the next station might be M&M bingo. So everything had a food-related activity, and we just kind of splurged on our unhealthy eating habits that night. So does that sound pretty good, Gabriele?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So that's just one of my ideas. I also used to do a huge international festival. We bring in professional dancers. The kids would do skits. I had dancers from Guadalajara, Mexico come with the beautiful rainbow colored outfits. Kids did Irish dancing. So it depends on what you have in your community, right? And the kids would all study culture and do stuff like that. So I have so many ideas I'm brewing with. But again, whose school is it?
Ours.
Is it my school or our school?
Ours.
It's our school. So we all come together and make those kind of decisions, right? And I'm the new kid on the block, so.
I like some New Kids on the Block.
Oh, you like that? You like the band too?
I was.
Yeah, you were a new kid on the block too? Yeah. So you and I will be buddies.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Amy, I'm going to give you 4 sentence starters. You just need to finish them. Okay, here's your first one.
One at a time, right?
Yes, only one at a time. When I am criticized,
I take it. You can't be an excellent person and be a wimp, right? You don't grow as a person unless you take the truths. My husband is the best at letting me know what I need to grow in. And I think our job as human beings is to be a slightly better person tomorrow than we were today. And it's a constant struggle. Sometimes I'm a bit hard on myself, and that's kind of a struggle too. So yeah, I think you have to take it. It's hard at first not to get defensive when somebody tells you an area that you need to grow in, right? But you get better at it as you get older because you realize that's part of being a human. We're all imperfect humans, right? But it's being self-aware and trying to ascertain what your weaknesses are and doing just a little better on them. And that's what I tell kids. Your job is to be a little better of a student and a human being tomorrow than you were today. So when they make mistakes, they know it's okay and it's part of being a human. You just don't want to make those same mistakes every day, because then it's kind of a choice, right?
when I'm not sure about something,
I think on it, and I seek the consultation of people I respect and admire as really intelligent, experienced educators. For me right now, it's my superintendent. It's the director of curriculum. It's my superintendent that I worked with for 5 years that just retired 3 months ago that I admire and respect, who is wonderful. So I have this whole network of individuals that I go to, that I know are logical and that I know put kids first, and I run things by them all of the time, right? And so that would be something, like I said before, very, very important. And sometimes you still kind of you listen to everybody and you still kind of go and do your own thing, but you talk it out.
when I'm told what to do,
That's a good one. It depends on who is telling me what to do. I think about what I'm asked to do and whether or not I want to do it and whether I think it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. And you usually feel some sort of instincts on that, right? And it depends on, like I said, who's telling you what to do. If it's somebody I really respect and admire and have seen make really logical and sound decisions before, I'm gonna probably listen. If it's somebody that's giving me advice on something they're not successful, like they're horrible with finances and they're telling me how to spend my money, I'm probably not gonna listen. You should take advice from people that are successful at what they're advising you in.
when someone disagrees with me,
I try and keep an open mind and listen. I kind of want people to convince me to think otherwise. It happens all the time, right? You just have this like automatic inference that you go to a lot of times, but I can be convinced otherwise. Not the easiest thing to do if it's something you're really kind of passionate about, but you've got to be open-minded to opposing ideas. That's another part of being human, right? And we want to teach our students to be like that too, to agree to disagree, to, you know, when you're looking at 6th grade and you're writing a persuasive argument, we have to teach kids about counter arguments, right? What do you believe in? What is your, not enemy, but your opposing person? What are they going to argue? What 3 things can you anticipate what they're arguing? Did they convince you? Or are you going to loop back around and stay on your feet and still stay the path with what you originally thought?
Thank you.
I feel like I want to ask you guys some questions too.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ask us.
So what's something that you've already kind of alluded to it, something that you're so proud of about Cavendish, about your community, and about the school that you would think is super important for somebody new coming in, for me to know? Yes.
Well, we have an unusual situation with a school community library that is basically a public library that the school is blessed to have a wonderful librarian through that public library. And the community worked very hard to get it. And I just am sort of wondering how you view that.
It is unique, right? I can't imagine, though, at the same time, a school without a library. It's so critical to your upbringing and the memories that you have going into the library. But I think it all boils down to collaboration and communication. Taxpayers, it sounds like, you know, fund that library, so it's very important that we share and that the whole community has access to it. I understand that, you know, this year some gains have been made with working out a plan so that it is equitable to everybody in the community and that it feels safe to everybody in the community, with the Monday and Friday being open for the students, and then the alternate days open to the overall community. It's a beautiful library. I love this little house that they're building out of books. Like, if I was a kid, I'd be in there all of the time, and the cafe tables. And I was getting excited talking to the librarian, and I regret, if you gave me like 30 seconds, which we don't have time for, I could remember her name. What is it? Kata. She was talking about some different literacy events and the book talk. I saw the parking lot was so full, I actually thought I had the wrong day. I thought, oh my God, I'm late for the interview, because the whole school was lit up on Sunday, but it was because there was a book talk there. So I started getting excited just talking to her, because literacy and reading is so important to me and something that I've dedicated many, many years. And I am graced by God, or whatever you want to call it, having 2 sons that learned like that. They learned how to read so easily. And I've spent my career helping students learn how to read where that wasn't the case. Every letter, every sight word, every sound was an absolute challenge for those students. So it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I think having a school library is so essential. So it sounds like maybe there's some more work to do, some collaborative work, but it sounds like we're on the right track to finding a viable solution for the community. Would you agree?
Yes, and we have had a lot of cooperation with Catherine, so we want to make sure, and Lauren, and the board, and we'd really like to have that continue.
And I'd like to learn a little bit more. I did read the board agenda notes. I think the most recent one that I read was back in May, and they were actually talking about the construction of the book reading material, but I would definitely want to at least read the notes, attend maybe some of the meetings if they were open. That's how you learn about things, right? Is being a partner in that. So I think we could do some really exciting things in the future with literacy and different events to help bring the community in even more, and have a respect for that wonderful little library. It's very cozy in there. I liked it.
Thank you.
It's a great place.
It really is. It's got vaulted ceilings and the whole, whoever constructed that, good job. Gabriela, yes. Sorry, I say it in the Italian and the Spanish way. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. As a principal, do you think it's important to be at school events,
Yes.
dances, and games?
I don't dance very well, but I still do it, right? Might as well have some fun while I'm there. So yes, I used to attend, when I was associate principal, I used to attend all the 7th and 8th grade dances, make sure that the parents felt comfortable leaving the students, that it was safe and it was appropriate and all those things. But yeah, I love going to games, right? So what kind of sports do we have that I can come to? Basketball?
Yes.
What else?
Hockey?
Hockey?
No, we don't have soccer.
Soccer in the fall?
Yes, we have soccer in the fall, and we also have baseball coming up too.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. It would be fun to bring my boys. My boys play competitive soccer. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of research out here. So they love soccer, but they've been playing a really long time, so they're getting a little bit tired. So they might wanna do hockey or just snowboard.
Well, there's Woodstock.
Is there good soccer going on here? What happens when it snows?
Huh?
What happens when it snows on the field? Do you just play?
Oh, no. That's when we play basketball.
Oh, you switch. You've got a plan in place. Vermont, you guys have it all figured out here, right? Well, cool. I think that's really important. You have to be present.
We're used to winter.
Yes. I'm used to like winter weekends. So, and just so you guys know, we were going to move a year from now, and one of the, tell me if I have this expression right, the straw that broke the camel's back, is that correct? Was our ski resort burnt down in the Caldor fires in August. That's our backyard. So imagine Okemo completely burning down. Now, the actual lodge and structure stayed open. They actually saved it. They had their own retired firefighters that they hired to go and protect the actual lodge. But some of the ski lift chairs were burnt down and melted, so you don't want to be on a ski lift chair that's melted. So we spent many, many days this August with evacuated students in all the adjacent school districts, and an entire school burnt down. And if you haven't lived through something like that, it's not a day event. It's months and months of very, very poor air quality, where you look outside and it is frankly apocalyptic. It's orange and dark, and we have students in our schools that are completely confined indoors, and our custodians were just working around the clock with filtration systems. So when that happened, it was kind of the catalyst, let's go now. And it wasn't by mistake that we ended up between, I'm gonna say it wrong again.
Okemo.
Okemo and Killington, because we wanted to be close to the mountains and the ski resort. That's our dream. So, and the school is just my dream as well. So it's funny, you feel like everything in your life, all of your experiences, all of the professional things that you've done, you don't know it when you're going through all of those phases, but then you land in a place like this, and I hope you agree that all of that was leading me into a certain direction to be the leader of this small school. I feel that in my heart, and if you decide that that's not what you feel in your heart, then so be it, and it wasn't meant to be. But I kind of feel like that. And I'm very choosy. I've had a wonderful career and a very good reputation, pretty much in the same county of Northern California. So I'm old enough and wise enough to know how important it is to find the right place. If it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. It has nothing to do with your qualifications at a certain point. You have to be the right person for that culture and that system. Yes?
No, you go.
Speaking of
Yes.
skiing, and are you familiar with the ski program in Vermont, that tradition?
You mean like the early release day where the
Yeah.
kids go and ski? Love it.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful opportunity for all kids for a very small amount of money to experience skiing and get instruction in skiing and be out there with the whole school and their friends. And it's this fantastic thing that I've just personally loved that my son has gotten to be a part of. And over the last few years, between COVID and the sale of Okemo to Vail Resorts and various things, it's faced its challenges as far as persisting. So, and thanks to the efforts of a few individuals, it has persisted. So I'm hoping that, obviously you'd be an advocate of that. And
I also love on the flip side, I have to think of both the outdoor education that skiing and snowboarding provides on those early release days, but also the professional development opportunities for the teachers that are back here. It is so darn important that teachers have the time to collaborate, especially at a small school like this, right? Even cross-grade level, because there are a lot of commonalities between the 5th and the 6th grade and articulation type of work that you could do. You have to have that time embedded. So I think on both sides it's good, and I do have a fantasy about skiing this mountain for the first time with the kids of this school. Now, I might embarrass myself, because what I've been told is East Coast skiing is like starting skiing all over. And so it's very icy, so I'm sort of terrified. I will not do a black diamond, so just tell your kids that. And I'm a blue, do we have blue here? Blue and black? I'm a blue person, right? And the first time I'm probably gonna be green. You know, I'm going down the little corkscrew things, but I can't wait. And I'd like to do that with the students of the school for the very first time and have that. I think that they would get a kick out of that. And they told me today, like, they're really good. You know, so I'm a little scared, but you know what? You have to make yourself vulnerable, right? My boys and my husband was a snowboard instructor up in the mountains in his youth. So I keep telling him, can you stop doing the jumps and this and that? And it's terrifying. I mean, I'm 45. If I fall, it's not going to end well. So I do have that spunky kind of competitiveness in me. So I have to be careful out there on the slopes. So take me up on this offer if you choose me. I want to go skiing.
I know, I cannot wait to go home and say we've got a new volunteer ready to go. New volunteer.
You just volunteered your husband. So that's what I want to let you know. You asked,
He would love
what do
it.
you want us to, what you should know about the school? Volunteers are very important in this school, and I'm hoping it's the same way as I think it is, and when I was here too.
Yeah.
The school is like the heart of the community.
I know, it's
We were,
wonderful.
as parents, we were welcomed in and out of here. You know, we helped out where we can, and we still, even as part of our community outside, I'm not in the school anymore, but we have Cavendish streetscapes. We like to do things with the students. I know many other places do, the Historical Society. So what is your view on having the school children as part of the community and the volunteers coming in and out?
Absolutely. I have this other fantasy about involving maybe the local retired community and the church community. Mondays are hard for kids with trauma, especially because they've experienced the weekend and sometimes not the best home environment. So I find that Mondays and then the Monday after long breaks, like the Monday that we just had, is super difficult for kids. So I have this fantasy about when the kids come off the bus, having enthusiastic greeters from out in the community that just welcome kids and teach them how to have eye contact, right? And teach them how to respond. One of my things that's very important to me is when I see kids coming off the bus, good morning, how are you? If you don't train them, some of them don't say anything back. Now, I didn't see that at this school, but that's one of the things that I would look for, and if I didn't see that, I would want to help them with that. So that was just one of the ideas of, that I thought of, and just call it like the enthusiastic greeting club, where the same consistent folks are out there, and they know the kids' names, and they're just a happy, pleasant person that the kids can count on seeing to start off their week.
So I'm sure there are a great many more things for you to share, for people to want to talk to you about, but we're going to wrap it up. If there are some closing comments you'd like to have, and then we're going to swap with our other finalists.
So I guess I'm hoping, obviously, you select me as your new principal. I think this is the place where I'd like to just dedicate my life's work. I'm an all-in kind of person. I have to be careful with that because I'm also a mother and a wife. But I'm here for the long run, and I would ask you, if you chose me, to embrace me 100%. I will count on you to learn how to pronounce things correctly, how to ski the hills correctly, and how to support your children in the best way possible and partner with you to help raise them. It takes a village, right? And so I'd be honored to be part of this fantastic village here at Cavendish. So thank you all for your dedication and for being here tonight. It's not easy on a weeknight. So my heart goes out to you with thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to take about 2 minutes, so if you want to stand up, and then we will have our second candidate come in.
So there are a number of directions here that we're going to follow throughout this process. So the candidate, first of all, is going to say a few words to introduce themselves to all of you. And after that, we're going to take questions. So please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screens. Everyone gets to ask one question. This is going to be recorded. And after everyone has had the opportunity, if there's time, people can ask a second question or a third one if we get through things quickly here. So we're going to stop this session around 6:40 and move on to the next segment. So if there are any school board members present, you need to remember that you can ask questions, but you can't discuss any board business during this session because it is not an official board meeting. Also, please be civil and respectful to the candidates and to each other. Feedback can be provided by going to the TRSU website, where there is a feedback form. You can also contact Superintendent Lauren Fearman directly, either through email or phone. I've put that link into the chat, and I'll refresh that periodically so people who join us can see all the information. If all else fails, from the TRSU website, you will be able to provide additional information, and it will be accepted through 5 p.m. tomorrow. You have any questions about that? Okay, hearing none. Joey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Joey Blaine. I have been a teacher at Floodbrook for quite some time. I've spent the majority of my teaching career, my educational career, here in Vermont. And I actually began my teaching career here at Cavendish in the 90s, when it was just one hallway. And I was at school at that time, getting my master's degree in education. And this is where it all began. So I think it's fortuitous and exciting that I'm here again, looking to come back. It's a wonderful building, and I'm really happy to have this opportunity. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you tonight.
Would somebody like to begin with a question?
This feels like teaching during COVID, when I would ask a question to my students and a resounding silence would welcome me.
Well, perhaps you could start by talking a little bit about what prompted you to consider coming here.
Sure. That's possibly going to be the easiest question I answer all night. I always hoped that I would come back to Cavendish, quite frankly. As I said, I started my teaching career here, and was always a warm and loving place. And it has a special place for me because it's where it all began. And at this stage of my career, as I'm looking towards administration, which is a goal I've had for quite some time, and I've been working on leadership and being a part of all sorts of leadership opportunities, I was so excited when I found out that Cavendish was looking for a principal. It was a no-brainer for me to throw my hat into the ring and hope for the best. And again, like I said, I'm thrilled to be here and welcome this opportunity.
Cheryl, did you have your hand up earlier?
I did. I thought I would kick it off with a question since no one else did. So my name is Cheryl Hammond. I'm the business manager of the supervisory union.
Hello.
And so my question is going to be about finance and just looking for your experience on budgeting and how you see the principal's role in that and throughout the year.
Sure. So I've had lots of professional development in the area of finance. Certainly, I've done all the coursework with regard to that. I also partnered with the principal at Floodbrook last year to help build the budget. I think that budgets are highly centralized now. I know that's how it is in our district. And so a lot of the decision-making process from the principal's point of view is less about the big picture and more about sort of what's best for students in our building and how does that flesh out financially. Certainly, we want to support teachers and do what's best for kids at all costs. But there's a fiscal responsibility there that I'm highly aware of, and certainly looking at past budgets and trends is something that I would do right out the gate.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Craig Hutvader. I see your hand in the air, like you just don't care.
Hey, Joey. My question, Joey, is can you talk a little bit about your approach to instructional leadership? You know, as a building leader, that's such a crucial part of the job.
I sure can. So I feel that a principal is really part of the team, and it's really important to lean on the expertise of your team. This building is full of incredibly talented teachers, many of whom were here when I worked here in the 90s. So it's really exciting to be able to be part of that team. I think that I certainly lead with my heart. I know that doing what's best for kids and making sure that we support all our students is always what guides me. It's my North Star. So it's something that I'm always keeping in the forefront in making decisions. I certainly like to always assume best intentions of others, making sure that I hear points of view and thinking through others' points of view. I welcome the input and the partnership of the community. I think that's really important in building a strong team within the community and in our school. So I guess I would say that certainly looking at leadership and helping guide. I know that this building has been sharing leaders throughout the district, and I know that they're interested in having someone in the building to really help pull things back together and really tie it up and be able to move forward in that direction. And it's a challenge I welcome. I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kate?
Thanks. My question is also about leadership. I noticed on your resume that you have a lot of teaching experience, and that's fantastic, but I did not see a lot of leadership experience. So I'm wondering if you could give 2 specific examples of your leadership, one where you were successful and one where you were not, and what did you learn from it?
Okay, so I've done a lot of, I've had a lot of leadership opportunities in my district. I've been on leadership teams. Was on the instructional leadership team that helped move our district into a proficiency-based learning model. That was something I was part of. I was part of, years ago now, bringing the new science standards to our district, where I did a ton of coursework involved in that, and then came back to the building and had to guide teachers through negotiating through the new, when it was new NGSS science standards, forming a PLC where I was a professional learning community where I was helping guide teachers through that changeover. I've been a teacher mentor, so new teachers in my building, I've partnered with them in a way that helps them in their instruction and acclimate to the building. So I've actually had lots of opportunities within the confines of my teaching experience to step into the role of leadership, I guess you would say. Times where it was successful, certainly helping my team transform the middle school curriculum and the middle school model. We sort of transformed that over pre-COVID, it was transformed. At the moment, everything is on sort of lockdown, but we transformed our middle school program, and I was pivotal in that. And I was very proud of that. That was a huge success. We went from a single subject 4 classroom community to a 6 through 8 integrated project-based model, and it was phenomenal, and I'm extremely proud of that. A time when I was in a leadership role where it was not so successful was years back when I mentored a teacher that just wasn't a good fit for our team, and as much as I wanted to help and make that work, it just didn't work out, and that teacher unfortunately decided, it was sort of a mutual decision that teacher would part ways with our school at the end of the school year. And I felt badly about that. I wish that I could have helped more and made that transition more smooth, but in the end, it just wasn't a fit. And so that's the way it worked out.
Okay, thank you. So I have a message in the chat from Linda, who asks, please tell us how you would construct an entry plan.
And Linda, can you be more specific? An entry plan with for me, or I'm not sure what you mean.
You're muted, Linda.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
So typically, an administrator would construct an entry plan for a new leadership role in a building. Can you tell us what steps you would take to facilitate your role as principal?
Sure. The first thing I would do would be to meet with the current administration and find out sort of where you are with current initiatives, what's been stalled due to COVID and how we should move forward there. I would love to convene the team of teachers and find out what's important right now on everyone's plate. And I think pull everyone together and just see where we're at. I know that it's been rocky not having a leader in the building for the last couple of years. And so I think it's really important to get the voice of the teachers and find out, what we need to do moving forward. I'm hoping to have a mentor that would also guide through this situation. But just really digging in with the staff to find out, what it is that we need to address moving forward.
Thank you.
Maria?
Thanks. Let me take down my hand there. Thank you. So welcome. I'm sorry, I'm an art teacher, so I'm only in the building on Fridays and I won't be able to see you when you visit, but I have a couple of questions. The first one is about, I'm an art teacher at Cavendish. I've also, up until today, been a board member in the Mill River District. And so I have a question about micromanagement.
Sure.
Which was always an accusation of the board and is also a concern about principals, to be honest, about how you manage and what you think about that term, because it's a buzzword.
Sure.
And it's sort of a complicated concept, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. That's for one. And for two, I have a note here, hang on. In terms of the arts, about how those fit into the school, and considering that your arts teachers, your specialists are part-time and we aren't there as much as we could be, but how you value that, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, because this is a we're putting you on the spot here.
And Zoom, that isn't awkward at all. So to address your first question, micromanagement is not something I'm high on. Again, I know that this is just a team of powerhouse teachers, and I'm just in awe of the work they do. And I think that I trust professionals to be professionals. So once expectations are laid out and everyone's clear on them, I think that they wouldn't have your job as a professional if you weren't a professional. And so I would trust that. Again, I assume the best in people. And unless somebody rises to the top as somebody who needs redirection or needs more support, I'm not one to micromanage. In fact, I welcome all stakeholders to have a voice and to delegate. I think it's really important for everyone to feel that they have a say in the direction of things. Secondly, I am a lover of the arts. And in fact, my first degree was in theater. So I come from that background. I think it's really powerful when you can integrate the arts and into curriculum. And so I really value when the UA and the teachers sort of collaborate and are able to make those connections, cross-curricular connections, because I think it's just so much more powerful to kids and what they're learning if it all sort of ties together in a bigger picture sort of way.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you for waiting.
No problem. Thanks, Anne. Hi, Joey. It's Lisa Marks. How are you?
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you. I'm kind of bringing this back to the kids a little bit. I'm curious to know how you will get to know each student on an individual level, because as you know, CTES has a unique, opportunity with a principal to be able to have the students know them really well because they're so small. So what will you do to get to know the students as a new principal?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And it's one of the things I love about Cavendish is its size and the manageability and the opportunity to know students. It would certainly be on my agenda to push into classrooms, join teachers, fold myself into units when appropriate. Hopefully I'll be invited in on a basis where I can be useful and get to know kids in that way. One of my favorite things is eating with kids because the conversations just take you where they take you and you get to learn all sorts of fun things when you're sitting down to a meal with students. I do it with my own students and I love it. So I also value the idea of the all school meetings and, putting myself out there so that kids will know who I am and see me as a safe person. So I welcome that opportunity. I mean, even just reading to kindergartners or again, like partnering with teachers when it would be helpful. I would welcome that. I think it'd be awesome.
Great. Thanks, Joey.
So I have a message in the chat and it says, I'm interested in how you make decisions as a leader, especially when there are so many differing perspectives in a school community between teachers, admin, parents, et cetera.
Sure. I think you have to make decisions based on what's best for kids and let that always be your guide. And then you'll always feel good about your decisions and always be able to move forward in a positive way. I think that it's important to view ourselves as a team for the same purpose. Parents are on the team because they want what's best for their kids and they want their kids' education to move forward and they want them to feel safe and progress in a social and emotional way that's appropriate. And so it's really just important to always keep that at the forefront, and then you'll never be at a loss for what to do because it's really all about the kids. I mean, I don't know how else to put it but that.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about your role as an instructional leader in the context of the school?
Sure. I think that one of the things that we're really looking at right now is making sure that education is equitable for all kids. I know that the past couple of years have brought some of those issues to the forefront. And so that's, work that we all need to dig into, looking at multi-tiered systems of supports for all our kids and bringing them forward. And just taking a look at those systems here at Cavendish and making sure that we are really, honed in on progressing those systems to a place where we're really doing the best for our kids.
Thank you. Greg.
I have another question for you. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you think about social and emotional learning and
you'll need to come here.
Hi. So I'm glad you asked that, Craig, because it's so important, and especially right now in the climate that we're in. I think it's really important to focus in on the social emotional well-being of our kids, because unless that's all in place, they can't access their learning. Really just pulling together the community, I think, is important. Making sure that our students feel like valued members of the community, that they're important and they're meant to be here, and we want them here in school in a safe environment, because without that they can't learn. I think that bringing joy to education is really important, and bringing back some of that joy, that pre-COVID joy that we used to have in our buildings, where things were humming along, things were buzzing, and everybody was in multi-age groups, or even in multi-level groups, just fixated on getting things done and really keeping it positive and a safe place to learn.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I have another question in the chat for you. I'd love to hear your vision for CTES. What are your hopes for the school and the students? How would you describe where you'd like to see our school and how you'd like it to be?
Wow, that's a big question. So my hope is to sort of bring things back around to where we're all invested in our learning environment again, and we take down our walls, and eventually we'll be able to take off our masks, right, and see each other's smiles, and bring back just bring back the energy that I feel like has been missing the last couple of years. We've been working on that really steadfastly over at Floodbrook, which is where I am now, really sort of bringing back that positive energy with the sorts of things we're able to do again. I want to be able to support the teachers in their learning and where they're at. I know that our teachers are feeling very stressed and overwhelmed right now. And I think it's important that we support them and make sure that everything's in place so that we can all be the best we can be. And I'm really looking forward to a time where our doors are open and the community is invited back in, and we can have events, and we can have plays, and we can have concerts, and we can have sleepover book nights in the library again, all that kind of fun stuff, things that really bring in the community and bring some vibrancy back to our schools.
So I have another question for you. Could you talk about how to utilize data to inform instruction?
Yes, that's a great question. So it's important that we make time and space for teachers to be able to have data team meetings. It's a time where they can discuss students, look at formative assessments, look at state assessments. I'm not sure. I know obviously everybody does SBAC, but I'm not sure what the other assessment programs here at Cavendish are. I know that we do iReady in the BRSU, but making space for that is the biggest issue. So really giving teachers planning time to be able to get together and review that, so that they're making informed decisions for their kids, and not just anecdotal evidence, but data-driven evidence, which is something that that we would look at.
Okay. So Linda, I have part of a question from you, but not the end of the question. Was there something you wanted to ask?
It's coming, but the entire question is, TRSU is in the middle of a an early literacy initiative. We're looking to adopt an SUY K through 6 program. Joey, can you tell us what experience you have with literacy and how you could support the initiative Cavendish?
Sure. Yeah, we're going through something similar to that over in the BRSU. We're looking at all sorts of data-driven or evidence-based curriculums with regards to literacy. Certainly teaching all these years, I've been involved in those decisions and those classroom decisions and use different programs. And I've been on teams also that have looked at not just literacy curriculums, but science curriculums, math curriculums. So I have a background in researching those and finding, research-based curriculums, as well as teaming with other districts to see what's working and helping use their research for a jumping off point, which is what we've done in several occasions. But yeah, I've been a part of that in my building for sure.
Thank you.
Kate, do you have a question?
I do. I have two questions, but I'll start with just one. I don't really know how to ask the question, but I have a fourth grader and a kindergartner, and this will be my fourth grader's fourth principal since being at Cavendish Town Elementary School. And I am curious how you take care of yourself, how you will sustain in this work, how you can assure me as a parent that my kindergartner won't also have 4 principals. At this point, he doesn't really care who the principal is because it's like a rotating number of people. So I'm just curious if you can speak to the importance of consistency, reliability, and how you might navigate that.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So I'm local, to be quite frank. I live just over the hill in Weston. I've actually worked in this district before. I've not only in Cavendish, but I worked in Chester, and my school was part of this district before. I'm very invested in this community, very invested in it. One of the reasons why I was so excited about this when this position came about was because I think that Cavendish is a career school for me. I knew George Thompson very well, and he's got massive shoes, and that would be tough to fill. But I saw how what an effective leader he was over so many years. And when I was looking into administration, sought his advice, and so I think that I could find a home here, which is really exciting for me to be able to say that with my whole heart. It's a place, like I say, that I've always envisioned coming back to. And again, like I'm local, I have roots here. I have a son who goes to school, just over the hill, and I would plan to put some roots down here. So I know that new principals, it's really important that they have partnership and mentorship with other principals, and I would definitely seek that out, look for support. It's important to know what you don't know and ask for help when you need it, and I'm never afraid to do that. I hope that gives you a little bit of peace of mind, because I think that would be really rough. I wouldn't want students to go through that again.
Okay, so we have a question in the chat regarding PLPs, and if you could talk maybe a little bit about your experience with them.
Sure, I have quite a bit of experience with PLPs. I'm not sure if you all have a specific platform over here, but we have been maintaining PLPs mostly in sort of in Google website. We give time and space for kids to update that. And one of our biggest initiatives with regards to PLPs was to have kids be able to dig into that and present it for themselves, particularly to parents at conference time. Our conferences are all student-led, 100% student-led, with the teacher as facilitator rather than, reporter. And so this gives kids a real ownership of their own learning. They know, they're aware that they need to save work as examples of evidence of their learning, whether it's evidence of success, evidence of the time I tried and failed and then made it better, or that sort of thing. So housing that learning is important, and giving kids ownership of it so they understand why we're doing it. What's the point? Really including them in those decisions and making them understand that they are stakeholders in their own learning is the point of PLPs.
So I'd just like to acknowledge that there's some people who haven't asked a question. Has anybody not asked a question but would like to? So I have one in the chat again, and it asks, how will you approach decisions that need to be made when what you as the principal feel is correct and needed, but may be in conflict with the wants of the community and the wants of your staff?
I think transparency is important, so that when you're making decisions, particularly perhaps unpopular decisions, people are aware of why and where that's coming from, so that they can hopefully have some insight as to why something needs to happen. You can't please everyone all of the time. That would be impossible. So I think open communication and just transparency in the decision-making process is helpful when you have to do something that's not a crowd favorite. I guess I would add too that hearing other points of view and understanding, particularly from parents, that they're really just advocating for their most treasured possession. That's their kids. That's their most treasured thing. And so just understanding and being able to have open communication with parents, particularly, again, like I said, when you have to make a decision that's unpopular.
Okay, we have a whopping 5 minutes left.
Wow, that went fast.
Well, that's what you get when you have good conversation. Does anybody have any additional questions or comments they'd like to make at this point?
I've got one if nobody else does.
Yeah, please go ahead, Craig.
This is kind of related to personalized learning plans and students being self-directed and kind of building that capacity in kids. What are your thoughts about conferences, and do you see a role for students in conferences?
Absolutely. I think it's so empowering when students lead their own conferences. It gives them like a direction too. I think that having an authentic audience whenever possible for student learning helps them become stakeholders in their own learning. So not just being able to invite families in to see student work and to see projects and that sort of thing, but knowing too that they're going to be the presenters at their own conference. It's really empowering, and I think it's eye-opening for parents as well when they see their kids in that role. teachers can always communicate with parents and should always communicate with parents. It shouldn't all be saved for conference time anyway. So that's why I think it's really neat when the kids can sort of take the lead and present their own learning and report out on what their successes and their challenges were.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks. So there's been a lot of controversy in the world those last couple of years, and schools have really been at the center, in the hot seat of a lot of controversial topics like racism and book banning and mask wearing and the like. How would you, as the leader of the building, leader of the school in such a small town, how would you navigate that? And do you have any experience navigating conflict?
Sure. Yeah, I've certainly navigated some conflicts with parents in the past. I think that it's important to have an open mind and welcome respectful discourse. I think it's important to lay out expectations in the community that our communications always need to be respectful, even if our opinions are diametrically opposed, and really setting forth that expectation always. We've had in the past developed a parent code of conduct, and conversely laid out a code of conduct, a professional code of conduct for teachers, so that we had a roadmap to be able to have those difficult conversations. I think that if we just treat each other with respect and dignity, that we can navigate through some pretty heavy stuff. I mean, it's unavoidable, right? It's going to all come up. But again, I just want to be able to support kids in a safe learning environment, a safe place to have difficult conversations. And I would hope that the community would support that.
So in our 1 minute, I have one final question for you.
Sure.
Is there anything we haven't asked you that you wished we had?
Oh my goodness. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I guess I would just say that I've been in the Vermont school system for some time, and I have a real knowledge of the initiatives, of late, and would love to help support staff, tie them together so they're useful and not an extra, layer of stress in a way that's going to be best for our kids.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all of you for coming to this. I'm going to stop recording in just a minute here. And then there'll be a brief pause while we switch gears, and we'll have another candidate for you in a few minutes.
So I guess I'll leave. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time on this snowy night. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
For the conversation.
Okay, so we're now recording. So Amy, I'm sorry, could you say your last name for me?
Boren.
Boren, thank you very much. So this is Amy Boren, who I've just met 30 seconds ago. So welcome. Just so we're clear about the procedure, it's going to be the same as we just used a few moments ago. So the candidate is going to say a few words to introduce themselves to all of you. And after that, we will take questions. Please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screens, as you were doing earlier. These sessions are being recorded and will be available for view on the TRSU website. Everyone gets to ask one question. After everyone has had that opportunity, if there is time, people can ask a second or third question. We will stop the second session. We're going to stop at probably 7:30-ish, it looks like.
Okay.
Any school board members should remember that they can ask questions, but cannot discuss any board business during this session, as it is not an official board meeting. Please be civil and respectful to the candidates and to each other. Feedback can be provided by going to the TRSU website at trsu.org and clicking on the link to candidate feedback, or by sending an email to the superintendent, that's Lauren Fearman at trsu.org, or by telephoning the superintendent, 802-875-3365. That link is also on the TRSU website. So when all else fails, look there. It will be front and center, and feedback will be accepted until Wednesday at 5 p.m. So tomorrow. So please do provide feedback moving forward. That will be most helpful. So Amy, would you like to start us off and tell us a little bit about?
And if you see my eyes peering up, I'm working on consolidated answers because I know it's around dinner time for folks. And I have to say too, I know there are some people on the Zoom that already might have heard my responses to some of the questions. So you might hear the same stories and jokes even. So I appreciate your patience for some of the teachers that met me already and had vibrant discussions with me. So, you know, I've said this before today, it is so hard to consolidate 22 years of your life's work into a 5-minute time span. But I'm going to do my best to do that. And like I said, if you see my eyes going like this, I'm looking at the clock to make sure that I'm not rambling too much. So if I could just start with the personal side of my life. I am from Northern California, about 30 minutes from the snow line in the Sierra Nevada foothills. And I have 2 boys. They're going to be 11 and 13. So one of them will start at Killington Elementary next year as the big 6th grader. And then the other one will go to 8th grade at Woodstock High, not too far away. And my husband is ending his career in law enforcement. So he'll be staying home to restore the farmhouse that we just bought on some acreage in Killington. So it's a complete restoration project, and he'll be sort of holding the fort down. But my boys are avid snowboarders. My husband was a snowboard instructor in his younger days at Sierra at Tahoe in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. So we specifically are landing in Vermont because of the 2 ski resorts. That was our life dream, to be in the mountains and live in a small rural community. And so we're making that dream possible in just a few months, and I'm super excited about that. So that's kind of on the personal side of things. And then on the professional side, basically I graduated from UC Santa Cruz and did 1 semester also at UC Berkeley. And I have a degree in Italian literature. So I do speak fluent Italian. I say fluent, but not perfect. And then I would like to start with my current role right now. So I've been the director of special programs for a small district of 7 schools, small for California standards. We are an elementary K-8 district, so we have 5 elementaries and 2 middle schools that are on their own individual campuses, which is a little bit different from Vermont. Most of the schools here are middle high school unions, right? So my job right now is to oversee numerous federal and state budgets. So one of them is the McKinney-Vento program, which is our homeless youth, and sort of oversight of the funding for that program, our foster youth, and also our Title I budget. So I work alongside the principals of our Title I schools, which we have 2 of them that are about 40% social economic. So I work with them to decide on program and how best to utilize those dollars and make sure they're carefully spent and are spent for programs that are effective, and if not, to adjust. I'm also the principal of summer school. We have a very robust summer school in my district, so I'm the director and principal of that program. We have about 450 students that come for a month. For us, it's the month of June because we're off at the end of May. I'm also the director of independent study, and sort of like the catch-all. So a lot of people, when they hear director of special programs, they assume it's special ed. We also have a director of special ed. So I'm kind of the in-between special ed and general ed and anything that falls in between. Last year, my job changed drastically. I was the director / principal of a very robust online school. So we have 3,500 students in our district. And when COVID happened, we gave the parents an option to either have the kids go into a hybrid model, which I think is similar to what you did here for in-person. But we had 850 families decide that they didn't feel safe sending their kids there. So we had 29 teachers that I was supervised and that were on my staff for the year, and I led that program. Now we've, that program only is down to about 35 students. So I've loved my role. I also mentor new administrators who are new to the role of, or are aspiring to be a principal. So I train them and mentor them through our summer programs. So that's a wonderful opportunity for new principals in training to kind of learn how to build a school and all of the different things that go along with that. Prior to this 5 years, I was an associate principal. So that's where I learned how to work under extreme time pressures, stressful situations. I managed a school alongside of the principal in California, very short staff. So it was myself and the principal, 850 students and about 60 employees. I was in charge of supervising and evaluating all of the paraprofessionals at the school and school safety. And I'm very proud of the fact that I was in charge of evacuating a school of 850 students. You couple that with the staff, over 900 people, and we had that system down to 15 minutes where we could evacuate the whole school and account for every single child. So that's something I'm really proud of. I was also, during those 2 years, in charge of suspension, expulsion, and all school discipline. Back then, nobody was really talking about restorative practices, and I'm happy to say that those conversations are now happening so that we can look at ways to change student behavior and to approach things with a more empathetic lens. So I'm excited about the work sort of nationwide that is occurring. So that's 2 years. Go back, prior to that, I was an instructional coach. That was my segue from teaching to administration. So I've now been in administration 7 years. And when I think back to 7 years ago, my goodness, how much I've learned because it's a very different role, administration, than it is teaching. So I did 1 year in another district as a literacy coach, where I was working alongside to be the teacher of teachers, really, and to help them improve their teaching practice. Going back a little further, I was a 7th grade and 8th grade English and world history teacher for about 10 years. And for many of those years, worked under a co-teaching model with the special ed service provider. And then prior to that, I worked at an elementary school. For 3 years, I was a 6th grade teacher and taught almost every subject except for math. That was a fantastic time. That was very early in my teaching career. And so that brings me all the way back to when I graduated college in 2000 and my 22-year career so far. So I know that's a lot to take in, and it's looking like I did it in 5 minutes. So I think that's pretty acceptable, right? So I'd love to hear from some questions to help guide me on what you're interested in knowing from the community. I can't see you on my screen right now, but I certainly can hear you.
Well, would somebody like to kick this off? Oh, there you go, Maria. Thank you.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, nice to see you. I'm gonna already flout the rules here, and since I'm not gonna be available when you come to visit the school because I'm the art teacher and I'm only there on Fridays,
I see.
I'm gonna ask a couple questions at once.
Sure.
And one is about the arts and what your experience is with helping foster the arts within the school communities that you've been part of, and collaboration with other teachers. And so that's one side. And the other one is about scaling down, because it sounds like you've had a lot of experiences with really big school systems and lots of staff and students, and a few with small, and the mentoring is encouraging for me to hear about. And also the fact that the group that went from 3,500 down to 35 was also impressive, but also how to communicate like federal and state guidelines down to a really small community that needs to have a maybe more human approach. So both of those things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So back to
And welcome.
Yeah, and back to fostering the arts and thinking about, just going to the personal level in my own experiences growing up. I played clarinet and was in the marching band through into high school, at least half of my high school career. And, those are the types of memories that stand out to you. I remember home economics class. I remember I still have all of my mugs and my pottery and things that I make. And the bottom line is the arts sometimes is what keeps kids in school. Right? Because it's so hands-on and it's so tangible and it's so good for the human brain. I haven't played clarinet in so many years, and I really want to see, would my brain remember, and when it comes back to me, if I grabbed a clarinet right now, how long would it take? Right? It's a different part of your brain that we're exercising. And for art, and there's so much wonderful research about art therapy, right? And how that can help students to express themselves in a different way. So we have to have those programs. Now, you're absolutely right. In a smaller school, we have to wear many hats sometimes, right? And use the talents that we have available. I will ask you to clarify the question about the federal and state guidelines. Am I hearing that you feel like there needs to be more transparency maybe on what those federal dollars are and how they can be spent? Or am I hearing that the funding is so small because we are a small school and that proposes a challenge in itself?
That's a great question. I guess what I meant was that you're being, like, potentially as a principal, you're pulled from multiple directions by the board, by the staff, by students,
Sure.
by federal and state guidelines. And so how you communicate with staff about what expectations are. Does that make sense?
Well, and I think
I'm also been a board member in another district, so I've been at different ends of this, but I'm just curious about how you go about it.
I think it all goes back to communication and explaining the why. Now, sometimes that you can't disclose everything that makes up part of the why, but usually there's a great deal of bringing that understanding and that perspective to why you're making certain decisions. The hardest times are when you can't disclose certain confidential things, right? But if there's a funding cut, we have to understand why that's happening, right? And the greater picture. And the bottom line is, when you're an administrator, you're the only person in the building that sort of has the lens of the teacher because you've done that walk. But you're usually the only one that has also been the administrator and has a total different sort of lens that you look at things through and different considerations that you need to have. But if you explain the why and you try and put students first, people know that you have their intentions and their best interests at hand, and they might disagree with the decision, and that's really hard, and it's a lonely place to be, right? Administration is challenging and it's hard. But one of the things that I talked about in the in-person session was how important it is to have what I like to call the advisory council surrounding you, which is the most difficult thing about moving across the United States of America for me. I have a fantastic network that I'm blessed to work with of superintendents and principals who I would consider are the absolute gold standard of educators, who are logical, who have a ton of experience. And when things are unclear to me, I consult them, right? Because sometimes you're faced with really difficult situations, and you need that support network, right? So that kind of helps me, because you're absolutely correct. You are the buffer between the board, between the parents, the students, and the teachers, and you have to support them all. And that's, anyone that tells you that that's an easy thing to do has probably not done it, right? So, and yeah, just building understanding of how the laws work. My guess is most people out there don't understand the stipulations that are attached to some of the funding that we receive from the federal and the state government.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you so much.
Linda?
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Please tell us how you would construct your entry plan for Cavendish Elementary School. You obviously would be transitioning from a central office position to that of a small rural school?
Right. I've read a ton of literature. I think the author is Watkins about the first 90 days, that people that are CEOs read, and about what you need to do on the first day and what you need to do on the 30th day. And I think from what I've read and what I feel in my heart is you have to listen and build relationships and be absolutely present with boots on the ground. There's a lot to learn. There is a culture here. I think it's a fantastic culture from my brief day that I've spent here, from all of the research that I've done online. There's a certain feeling you get when you walk on this campus, and it makes it's a place that you want to be at. And I can tell you, I've been in hundreds of schools, California, Vermont. You know when you're at a place of excellence and a really special place. And this is one of them. And that's why I'm sitting before you today. So I think it's being present and just being in the classrooms with the teachers, with the kids. I'd like to meet before July 1st even hits, one-on-one with the staff here, and ask sort of consistent questions to everybody without being not authentic, right? And the beauty of asking similar questions to everybody is really quickly, you can kind of see patterns and trends emerge, and you feel what people are concerned about and what they love and don't want changed, and what's making them really nervous. And then those are the things that you start to address, the things that are consistent across the board, right? But that takes time. And I think there are so many good things in place. People will ask me, well, what do you want to change? It's not about what I want to change, right? So I have sort of a servant leadership style, a collaborative leadership style. There's some times where I have to make a top-down decision. It's just, there's just no question, and you don't need to consult with everybody. But as much as possible, you're a collaborative team and a school family. So you're working together on what you need to change. It's not coming just sort of this tyrannical rule coming down, and this is what I think needs to happen. It's a collective voice, so it's not a surprise, whatever initiatives that we have going. And I'm very protective right now of the teachers. They've been through a lot along with the students and the families these past 2 years. People are tired. People experience compassion fatigue. So it's really important that we have focus on whatever new things and whatever changes we are implementing to not exhaust our staff. Nationwide, we have the hugest turnover of new teachers entering in the profession and leaving, right? And we need to be really cognizant of that fact and of that alarming statistic to make sure that we're taking care of each other and really being focused on the initiatives that we want to bring forward as a team. Does that make sense to you?
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Linda. Thank you for being here tonight. I know it's getting late. I'm not a night person. I don't know if you guys are. I wake up at 4:30. So this is definitely not my prime thinking time, but I'm doing my best because it's important.
Thanks again.
Katie?
Thanks. My question was actually going to be about your leadership style, but you just said that you have a servant leadership style and a collaborative leadership style. So I'm wondering if you can give a specific example of you using those leadership styles.
Absolutely. Let's talk about servant leader. It's so easy to toss around those terms like, oh yeah, sure, I've read this literature about being a servant leader. To me, I think of just the examples of thinking on my toes. So just recently I took over for one of the principals. She had a family emergency. Her husband was in the hospital. So I was the leader of her school of about 500 kids for 2 weeks. So I've had times where, I've had I was telling the teachers, I had 6 teachers out in one day, 2 of them who tested positive after 9 o'clock with the children there, right? So you're solving all of those issues. When you need to, you're checking lice because there's no nurse. So now I'm getting the comb and I'm checking lice and going through that whole process. I'm now a certified health professional as well. So then I'm done with the lice situation. I've got all the classes covered and all the subs in line. Sometimes I even teach kindergarten. I've taught many classes this year from kindergarten all the way up to 6. So that's, to me, being a servant leader. You're willing to do everything. When I was there these past 2 weeks doing the principalship, we all arrived at school. I finally triage all of the teachers that are absent, find coverage. A teacher calls, I have no electricity in the class. None of the electrical sockets work and I can't project anything on my screen. So you have to move quickly. So I ran down there, I watched the kids while she relocated her staff to one of the empty classrooms since that teacher was out with COVID. And I taught something to the kids to buy her time so that they weren't losing instruction. She came back, I helped her, I got the kids over there, and I'm right back up to the office, and there's a discipline issue, right? Or the secretary needs you. So I think boots on the ground is you're doing whatever it takes, and you get better. I've been an administrator for 7 years now. At kind of faking, even though you feel kind of chaotic inside, it's your job to shield the teachers from the chaos and the children. So like when all of that was happening and I was moving the kids, I was like, this is so cool. This is so fun. We get to go to another classroom. And if you make it a big deal, then they don't make it a big deal either, right? So servant leadership is just being absolutely present. And just because I have advanced degrees and a master's in education and I'm fluent in Italian and I have this certification to teach history and this for English, it doesn't matter. You know, if something needs to be shoveled from the front, just today in my day here, a student's Cheeto bag exploded out here when I was at recess right here at Cavendish. And everybody's kind of looking around. I found the custodian. I got the broom and the dustpan and I had the kid help me, right? And we cleaned everything up. And so now I'm the custodian for 5 minutes. That's servant leadership. It's nothing is too big or too small. But I have to say, as a teacher and as a parent, there have been some leaders in my life, some bosses, where they won't make a decision. And it's kind of like you're waiting and they're indecisive. So that's annoying, right? And so at a certain point, sometimes a top-down decision just needs to be made. Hopefully you've listened to the collective voice and you've outweighed everybody's viewpoints and you just make a decision that you think is best, right? So there are some times where it's a top-down decision and you don't consult because it's kind of a no-brainer. But whenever possible, back to, that was the servant leadership side, back to the collaborative nature. You want to collaborate and include everybody's voices. And that gets you the buy-in on whatever initiative that you're trying to make happen. So I thank you for your question, Kate. Oh, how cute that doggy. That lab.
He was just biting my chair a second ago.
Making my heart sing. Is that your actual dog here, the picture?
Yeah, we just got a puppy.
Oh my goodness, and the little sleepy eyes. I love that. So at one of my schools, we have guide dogs. One of the teachers and the school principal train guide dogs. So I'm very used to labs.
So I have a question in the chat for you.
Sure.
I'm interested in how you make decisions as a leader, especially when there are so many differing. Oh, we've just answered that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It depends, I would say. Sometimes it's collaborative, just to recap, and sometimes it's not, and it's a top-down. It's just, some issues are just so clear. Like, for example, if a student does something so egregious, drugs on campus, hopefully that will never happen here, a knife. I don't need to consult with everybody on that. I know what to do. But there are other things that are more collaborative in nature.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Take your time.
All right, sorry, I don't see anything new here. I'm sorry. No, okay, so Linda, you have your hand up again? Yes? Or is it still up? No, it's not. Okay, that was magic. Yeah, go ahead.
And my chat is disabled for some reason. Actually, I know the reason, but that being said, here's my question, Amy. TRSU, we're engaged in an early literacy initiative. And from that early literacy initiative, we're looking at K through 6 ELA programs. SC-wide, which is very different from where we came. Each school has their own. So the question is, how do you navigate helping your school transition to an SU-wide program?
Yeah, and it takes time, number one. And that's, part of the work that I do. In our district, we do have a common adopted curriculum. It's called Benchmark that goes kindergarten all the way up to 5th. But I will tell you, in our current district, we allow a lot of teacher choice and teacher autonomy. So we are not consistent. So that's really challenging with everybody using the same curriculum religiously. So some people use Benchmark wholeheartedly, some only take bits and pieces of it and then have their own preferred phonics program. So I think even though the supervisory union might have one, the question is, what do we as an entire supervisory union, how do we feel about that, right? And I don't know the answer of that currently. Do we give some teacher choice and autonomy, or do we want everybody to sort of be lockstep in using it? Now, the benefit of having everybody use the same curriculum is collaboration, right? And having teachers work together and share their expertise and share, their challenges and their triumphs together. But in my district, we have our agreed upon curriculum, but then we also have, as part of our multi-tiered systems of support, some alternate programs that we use that are fantastic, that are multi-sensory for the students that aren't quite grasping it. Now, with early literacy and phonics, students reach a point of saturation. You can only teach so many sight words and phonics and fluency in one day. So you have to be really cognizant of that. But the two programs that we use, if you're interested in looking them up, which might be something that we could use to supplement this new initiative, are SIPS and Sunday. Which is kind of the next level up if students aren't getting that primary level of instruction. And SIPS is, structured language immersion that is sort of multi-sensory in its approach. So that's where you would see kids sort of air writing letters and using different kinesthetic movements for that, because some kids need that and they need that repetition. So hopefully I'm not going off on a tangent with that, but I do have experience with that. And it's a process, right? And it's building of understanding and comfort level. And then looking, no curriculum is ever perfect. There are always strengths of a curriculum and sort of weaknesses. So using and relying on the teachers too, to provide that feedback and have a continuous loop of conversation. Now, the biggest complaint that I used to have as a teacher is the time. It felt like we would get a new, back in the 90s and 2000s, I'm old, we would have sort of the traditional textbooks back then, and we were kind of moving towards online components of literacy programs. But it seems like we would get one day of training before school started, and then we were kind of like on our own to figure it out. So what we know about professional development is that it needs to be ongoing in order to be effective. So I would want to make sure that whatever early literacy program that we have, that it's not a one-stop shop in professional development, that there's ongoing professional development and some sort of framework for having teachers collaborate and discuss things in a sort of controlled and calculated manner. So it's kind of like soup, right? You don't just make the soup and just serve it to people. You're tasting it along the way and making adjustments or adding salt or adding pepper based on it. So like I said, I would say in closing, no curriculum is perfect, but I think we need the time. And I think the learning needs to be ongoing. So does that kind of answer your question, or is there something else I can clarify?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would be excited to really take a look at it and study it if I was to get the job before July 1st and just learn as much. What is it called? The program is it Fountas and Pinnell?
No, we're looking at a curriculum EL. It's EL.
And that's what it's called. When I hear EL, I think English learner.
Of course you do.
In California, but that's not what this is. It's actually called the letter E and L.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I can look it up. Thank you. Thank you for that question. As you can see, I'm very passionate about literacy. So I kind of get excited about curriculum. It's my wheelhouse for sure.
Thank you.
It's an important wheelhouse to have, right?
So Craig, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your approach to fostering social and emotional learning.
Gosh, can't have one without the other, right, Craig? I mean, You got to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're stressed and your basic needs aren't met and you don't feel safe emotionally, you can't learn, right? So my approach would be, you can't just wholeheartedly, especially in a post-pandemic world, focus on academics. You have to address the social emotional and the development of children. So I was fortunate enough in my district currently to have a fantastic superintendent who retired a few months ago, and she brought a ton of trauma-informed practices with her. So if you look on the website where the two candidates' links are, I have a couple of books on there that have to do with trauma-informed practices. A fantastic book on there that you can look at and maybe pick a copy up about trauma-informed practices is What About Billy? So you'll see that one on there. And then my other recent study that I've done that was kind of a refresher, because we started that work before the pandemic in our district 5 years ago. But I just read this fantastic approach called Conscious Discipline. And that book is also listed on my, it's called What I Love About Cavendish on there. And so I can't tell you how many times I've used that training with children that I just had met. We did a lot of work on bilateral movement to calm a student's heart rate and regulation, right? And like I said earlier, along with those kinds of things and making sure that you have, in most of our schools, we actually implemented a quiet corner where kids could go and take a break when they were feeling dysregulated and taught them different movements that they could do and pressure points. I've used those so many times in the last 7 years. And I'm super excited, like I said earlier, I think it was in the live session, about restorative practices for discipline. I am somebody that was my primary job 5 years ago. And I can tell you, it never feels good to suspend or expel a student. It is heartbreaking. And it seemed like 5, 6 years ago, people were just starting to talk about other ways in American education to work on discipline that was less punitive in nature and more empathetic in nature, with an understanding of the human brain and how to do things in a restorative way. And just today, I mentioned earlier, there was an explosion of some cheese puffs, right? And I have to admit, it wasn't very innocent. There was a little child, it was no big deal, but they had like a noodle, a noodle that you would use for a swimming pool. And I kind of saw out of the corner of my eye, he took the noodle and he kind of whacked the Cheetos, and the whole thing kind of popped and exploded this other student's Cheetos all over the floor. And the student who owned the Cheeto bag was kind of, oh my goodness, like, what do I do? And the boy that did it, he was kind of just standing there. And that right there is an opportunity for things like social emotional learning, restorative practice. It's a small thing. It really was no big deal. And so you as a leader, like, I had to decide, even though I was a visitor today, do I turn the other cheek and just let the Cheetos lie on the floor, or do I address it? So I talked to the student who had the noodle and whacked the Cheetos. And I said, hey, I think her feelings are really hurt. The Cheetos are all over the floor and now she doesn't have a snack. What do you think you should do? He went over and he said, sorry. And I said, well, what are we going to do about all these Cheetos on the floor? And so we went and we got a broom from the custodian. I found the custodian and he swept them up, and he picked up every single one of those Cheetos and threw it away. And so the hope and the goal is that the next time he's got that noodle, he'll maybe just pause a second and think about sort of the natural consequence of doing something without thinking. And for the most part, developmentally, the little guys, I would say 90% of the discipline issues are kids because their brain is still developing. They don't think and they just do things, really quickly. And then after, they're like, yeah, that was not the brightest thing to do. Right. So I think that all goes back to your original question. And so much of what we do as leaders and as teachers is not academic. It's teaching kids how to do life, how to deal with disagreements on the playground, how to be a good person and take care of your school and take care of your community. It's all those little things, right? So I would say in closing that we have to do both academics, social, emotional, trauma-informed practices. And I would love, if chosen to be the principal, wouldn't it be fun to do that as a parent group where I could facilitate sort of a book talk on some of those books that I recommended? They're eye-opening, right? Especially if you were lucky enough as a person to grow up in a very stable home environment where you had less trauma than some of the students that we serve in our community. So that would be an exciting thing to do. So thank you, Craig, for your question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Wendy, thank you for waiting.
So my question is the question I asked in the chat in the other interview, which is about what would your vision be for our school? Where would you see us, and what would you like our school to be like?
First off, I think the school has so many things going for it. It really is a place of excellence already, but sometimes taking a place from really, really great to excellent is far harder than taking a school that is weak to good. So there are certain challenges that propose when you already have a lot of fantastic things going on. But I would love for this to be the community event hub where we bring back, I think we're heading towards the recovery of the pandemic, where we bring back some really fun activities that are kind of student led. I talked in my other forum, if you get a chance to watch the video, the one that was in person, about a Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory event that I loved and did for many, many years, where the older kids in the school and they were at-risk readers would read to the younger kids. We had the elementary school and the middle school adjacent to each other. So it was so easy to facilitate. So we worked on reading, and all of that culminated, for example, in a wonderful, fantastic night where hundreds of people would come, and the kids would open up the multi-purpose room, and it was like Willy Wonka's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory imagination, music playing, and the kids would attend different booths and activities, all having to do with literacy, but also with sort of sweets in the background. So one of the stations was making bookworms, and the students would use Rice Krispie treats and fruit roll-ups and all kinds of things to make little bookworms. And then the next station was M&M Bingo, right? We want kids to have those fantastic memories. And if you think back to your memories as a child, what do you remember? I remember being in 6th grade, going to the Fall Harvest Festival. I won a ceramic pumpkin. It was like the only thing I've ever won in my life. I still have it. It lights up. My kids love it. I bring it out. So I remember that. I remember being in home economics class and making cookies, right? So I would want this place to be so rich and full of joy, and where kids are happy to be here and they feel safe, and they're excited about the different events that we do. And I'm sure there are already fantastic events that are happening, but just a place where rigor and grit and working hard and doing things that are scary in our learning is just the norm. And because it feels good to do things that are hard and to eventually overcome them. So I hope, Wendy, I answered your question. If you need me to clarify, or if I got on a bird walk, it's getting late, so my brain is not at a fantastic level right now. So please ask me to clarify, and I'll get back on that focus for you if you feel you need that.
So are there any other questions?
It's already 7:30. This went by fast.
Yeah.
And I just want to say something to the folks. I can't tell, Anne, how many people are on the Zoom right now.
There are 32 people.
Wow. I mean, what day of the week is it? It's Tuesday night. It's 7:30. I briefly, when I could see everybody on there, even saw some teachers there that spent a good part of their day already getting to know me. I know there's voting tonight. I think there's even a basketball game. Is that right? Either. Yeah.
There are a few things going on, yes.
So my point is, it just showed this is an important position. And it is said that teachers are the #1 influence on students and how they succeed in school. And then the principal is #2. It's a big weight to carry on your shoulder, well, you have to be a soldier too, maybe, on your shoulders. And so I don't take that lightly that you're all here tonight. Taking time to make sure that whoever is selected is the right person for the job. And I would just say to you all, like, I love this school. This is my dream. This is where I want to spend the last part of my career. I don't want to have to switch again. I feel that this is the right place for me, and I will work alongside wholeheartedly. I'm here for the long run. You know, when I read about the turnover of principals after having a fabulous sort of a hero principal here for, I think, 20 to 30 years, some folks said, that's got to have been tough. And this school, this staff, it deserves some consistency in its leadership because it takes so long to build the relationship and have forward momentum. So I'm here for the long run. And I would just ask that you embrace me and show me grace as I learn the culture here. And as I move my own family across the nation to my new home that I can't wait to get to. So thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, you can email me, check out some of those books that are recent reads for me. And just my heart goes out to you and thanks.
Cheryl, did you have a question?
If you want to wrap it up, that's fine.
I'm here. It's okay.
Well, I'm the business manager for the school district, so my question to you is about finance. So I want to know what your background in budgeting was and how you see your role in budgeting as a principal and maintaining the budget.
Absolutely. So I have, especially in my role right now, I oversee the Title I budget, which is quite lofty in a bigger district. Also Title III budget, which is the English learners in California. So that's about a $20,000 budget there. Title I, much more, because we have 2 schools that are 40% socioeconomic. So I work with our business folks to make sure that those numbers are clear, that we're fiscally solvent and we're not overspending. And then I work alongside from the curriculum and instruction standpoint with those principals. I don't take taxpayer dollars lightly. We need to be very careful how we're spending those funds. So I would say, if anything, I'm fiscally conservative, but there are lots of budgets that need to be spent or you lose them. So for example, with our Title I funds, I don't know if it's the same here, you can only carry over 15%, right? So if you have a $20,000 budget and you only spend 10,000 of it, you've lost a lot of those funds. So it's making sure that, so that's part of my role right now, supporting the principals, looking at how they're spending those dollars, making sure that they are spending them and that they're spending them effectively, and that we're re-looking at that and having conversations from year to year because our needs change as a school site. So I would say I am definitely a language person. I'm a literacy person. I'm a teacher at heart, but I have learned how to work with budgets, how to be very careful, how to have my own systems of sort of tracking. And in our district, the secretaries at the school, I don't know, Cheryl, maybe you could explain a little bit how it works in the Two Rivers Supervisory, but our secretaries are so crucial in assisting the site principals with the budget and having systems in place. So I would say I'm very comfortable with school budgets, but there's always something to learn, right? And overseeing a school site budget would be different than just some of the funding and the federal programs that I look at. So I would want to work side by side with you. So can you clarify on, does the administrative assistant at the school site support the principal significantly with the school budget?
I think every school runs a little bit differently, but it certainly in some of the schools they do. I'm not sure exactly how Cavendish is, how much administrative assistant involvement there is with that. But you would be primarily working with local dollars, which would be taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. And so, I'm familiar with sort of coding where there's different budget strands. So I work with the business department. At first it was rocket science and they just know all of these codes and, there's certain consistent ones that kind of change, whether it's supplies or whether it's instruction or whether it's professional development. So I understand how the system works, but you do have to work side by side with your business partners, right? And we have different kind of sides of the brains that we're both good at. So I would rely on you a lot to help guide me. And can I ask Cheryl, who meets with the different site principals and how often does this individual meet with the site principals to make sure that the budget is aligned like at different times of the year in terms of staffing and things like that? Is it multiple times in the year where there's sort of budget powwow meetings to make sure?
We do a lot of that in the falls. We build the budget for the following year. And then as it's kind of as needed throughout the rest of the year.
Okay.
With that.
So I wouldn't be on my own.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm prepared for the budget. It used to scare me when I first 7 years ago went into administration, but you kind of get used to it, right? And you get used to how things work. So it just takes some time. And the cycle of 1 year helps a lot, kind of seeing everything through.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining us this evening. And thank you, Amy, for being so forthcoming with everything. Please all go and have a good evening and stay warm. And yeah, curl up by a fireplace if there's one to be had.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Anne, for facilitating.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everyone, we had a couple of people come in a little bit later after it started this first one, so I'm going to tell you the same things that I said for our first finalist. And I'm Lauren Fearman, I'm the superintendent, if you haven't met me before. You're going to be speaking now with Joey Blaine, who is also a finalist for this position.
Hello.
We're excited to have her here. And in a minute, I'm going to give her a chance to tell you a little bit about herself, and then you can ask some questions. And we'll be able to take our time with that. We'll have about 45 minutes, same as we did for our last finalist. The same things about feedback are true, that there's a piece of paper that has Joey's name on it that you can write responses on. You can also go to the trsu.org website and you can click on a link to fill out a Google form to give feedback. You can send me an email, lauren.fearman@trsu.org, or you can call central office and I'll talk to you and be glad to take the information that you have for feedback. The recording of both this session and the Zoom session will be available online starting as soon as we can get it up there tonight. That'll be up for a few days, but we'll only take feedback through 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So please be sure to let us know what you think. Right? Again, we want everybody to ask a question. If you have more than one question and other people have had their chance, you can certainly ask more than one. We'd also like to remind everybody that we are being, as everybody was during our last session, civil and respectful to everybody who is here. All right, questions about our process? All right, Joey.
Well, I'm disappointed to hear you didn't have carrier pigeon as a method for feedback, because it seemed like every other method was available. So my name is Joey Blaine, and I am beyond thrilled to be here being considered for this position. I started my educational career here at Cavendish in the 90s, and I see a familiar face who's I started with. I started here in the 90s when I was back, when I was getting my master's in education, and I always loved this building, and I always had it in the back of my mind that I would find my way back here someday. Currently, I'm a teacher at Floodbrook. I've been at Floodbrook for 12 years and various other places before there. It's been my goal to be in administration, be in a leadership role in a community, such a supportive community as Cavendish, for quite some time. And those pieces of my life finally all came together, and I was able to make that happen through the program at Castleton. I've had lots of leadership opportunities that I'm sure you'll ask me about as we progress, where I've been able to get my feet wet and really enjoy the role. And I'm beyond thrilled to be here. So thank you so much for braving the cold and coming out and seeing me. Sure.
Oh, no, you go. I love hearing your questions. They're great questions.
Well, it's going to be the same ones I asked the other ones.
Very good idea. Go ahead.
Good way to collect evidence, right?
Evidence, compare and contrast. As a principal, do you think it's important to be at sports and dancing events?
I do. I think it's very important. I think that it's being part of the community, really showing your support for the students and being an integral part of the community. I've always been involved in the arts, and I love coming to those events. I've helped produce some of those events at my school, as well as go to all sorts of sports events to support kids. I think it would help me see all my learners in a different way. And I think that's really important because not everyone is successful in the classroom. Sometimes that's hard for kids. And so being able to see kids where they really shine, maybe it's on the basketball court, maybe it's on stage, maybe it's playing an instrument, is really important for a school leader.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that you have, hi Joey, you were actually working on your master's degree when my daughter Kylie was in kindergarten.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of remember you. And I'd like to know, you mentioned that you have administrative skills since you've been a teacher, right? And you started here with your master's. What have you done in administration that would qualify you for this position?
So of course I went through the administrative program, certification program, and all the coursework involved, which is extensive. And then I've been able to do a lot of leadership roles over the years in my district. I've been on leadership teams. I was part of the instructional leadership team that helped move our district into proficiency-based learning model, which was a really long and tough process, which I think we're still in the process of perfecting, for lack of a better word. I helped bring new science standards to our district over the years. I was part of that leadership team. I've mentored new teachers, many new teachers over the years, both in my classroom and new teachers to the building who needed a partner to help hone their practice, as well as acclimate them to our district and our building and that sort of thing. So as much as possible, I've always been part of that, the leadership community. I helped lead my team in transforming our middle school program at Floodbrook. We had a 4 subject area sort of split middle school years back, and we spent some time partnering with Tarrant Institute, which I believe Tarrant is part of this district now, right? And transforming our program into a much more integrated, hands-on, project-based learning model. And it was a wonderful opportunity for our middle school learners. So as much as possible, being part of that community.
If you were with Peggy, I'm guessing you were in 1, 2?
Yeah, K1, 2.
What grade levels do you have experience with?
Actually, all grade levels, starting at 2nd grade right up through college. I have experience teaching at all grade levels. Let's see, kindergarten. Not kindergarten, sorry. 2nd grade, 3rd grade. I've taught math. I've been a Title I math teacher, Title I reading teacher. At Floodbrook, I've been 6 and then 6, 7, 8 in an integrated multi-age model for years. So really at all grade levels. And then at the college level, when I was working at Green Mountain College, I was the coordinator for students with accommodations. So I dealt with students who came in that needed support, that had an IEP, let's say, or a 504, which is it's students with disabilities, at the college level. So I had to support them and coordinate all their accommodations with professors and whatnot. So all age levels. I also have a kid, so you get them at every age.
So if Owen were to if you were to be hired as principal and my son were to come home in the first week of school next year, and we said, hey, what's your new principal like? What would you hope that would come out of his mouth?
I hope that he would say, she's really kind, she made me laugh, and she was interested in what I had to say.
Can you tell me a little bit about tell us a little bit about your experience with the IEP programs and 504 programs in elementary schools?
Certainly as a teacher, I have a lot of experience with that. I've been at the table for many planning sessions for IEPs. Evaluation plans for kids. I've referred many kids, been part of the EST model. Again, at the college level, that was my job, coordinating special education plans for students. And I'm actually part of a team right now looking at current legislation in my district called Project Inclusion. And we are meeting on a regular basis and bringing back these multi-tiered systems of support to our classrooms, and hopefully supporting teachers in developing universal design methods to be able to make curriculum available to all students of all learning levels. So, but I partnered with special educators for years and years, so very comfortable in that venue.
What has your experience been with outcomes in the elementary school using those programs?
Using what programs?
The IEP programs and the
Oh.
504 programs, the multi-tiered program.
Oh, sure. So, I mean, outcomes are always varied because every student is different. So it's hard to sort of generalize outcomes. However, really developing a multi-tiered system of support that is accessible to students and teachers, and developing a roadmap that everybody can follow has always been successful. If it's very, very clear, and so everybody is aware of the systems that are in place and able to follow them, then I think you have a much better chance of a positive outcome. Also, making space for planning time and for teachers to collaborate with regards to students is important in the implementation of those plans.
What do you think you bring to Cavendish? What events do you think you bring to Cavendish that you've had at Floodbrook?
What events?
Yes.
Ooh, you know what I would love to bring here is passion projects. And I don't know if you guys do something like that here. So at Floodbrook, one of the things we did with our middle school students was give them a time every week where they were allowed to choose what they were going to learn. And we helped guide them in their research. Did they want to learn about something? Did they want to learn how to make something? But really, it was all their choice and their interests. And then ultimately, we had a showcase where we invited all of the community and parents to come in and see all these variety of projects that students did. I had a student build a trebuchet. Do you know what that is? It was like a, it shot like a cannon across the room. We had kids who did research projects on other countries. We had kids who studied areas of baking, and they had all sorts of different kinds of foods to taste. A student built a scooter and rode that around. But that was a really awesome project that could be done at any age level and any skill level. And I would love, and we used to do it every semester. So we did 2 every year in our middle school. And it was so exciting when the community would come in and see those projects. And the kids were thrilled to share their work. And that is something I would love to see start here at Cavendish.
How many students are in Floodbrook?
Usually just under 300. Around I think we're at 290 right now, but that fluctuates.
Goes to the 6th grade, or is
it goes to 8th grade.
It goes to 8th grade.
Yeah, 6, 7, 8 in the middle school.
Oh, 6, 7, 8.
I'm sorry, how many years have you been an educator?
Since the late 90s. So let's see, I took some time off in the middle there, though, to have my child and pursue other things. But so 20-something years.
And why do you believe now is the right time for you to make that next step to principal level?
Well, to be honest, it's been my goal for quite some time. But on a personal level, I just wasn't able to make that leap. It wasn't right for my family at that for many years. But I'm at a stage now where I feel like it's time, and I can give my whole heart and mind to this type of position, which I really wasn't able to do in the past, even though I knew it was my goal. I knew it's where I was headed.
And do you believe this is where the apex of your career ends, or is this another stepping stone to something else?
So I really would be thrilled if I could land at Cavendish. I think that this is the type of school that could be a career. I love the size of this school. I love the community. I'm local. I'm a local person, and I have deep roots in this community. And I think I would be very happy here. I think that it would be a great partnership. So I don't have aspirations to move up beyond, I should say.
So you shared a little bit of details as far as what's bringing you to Cavendish, but if you can elaborate a little bit more on the why. Why Cavendish? What about Cavendish specifically?
There's so much heart in this building. I know that much of the staff that are here, I've known for years. I find them to be incredibly dedicated educators. That's exciting to me, to help bring together a group like that and help them go as far as they can go and be the best that they can be. I think that's really an exciting prospect. I love the size of this school. I think it's an amazing opportunity to nurture kids in a size in the population. And again, like, I just really love the community here. I think it's just sort of a magical place in my mind. And maybe I've romanticized it a little over the years, because like I say, this is sort of where I started. But I've always envisioned coming back here, always. And so this was just a fortuitous timing for me.
All right, I'm asking you a second question, so I'm just making sure.
I think we're good.
Hypothetical, there's a hypothetical educational disagreement between the teachers and the superintendent. So who do you side with?
Well, I mean, that's going to be very situational. Who do you side with is a tough question. I think that open lines of communication and transparency in decision making is very important, so that you're never going to be able to please everybody all the time. Sometimes you have to do the unpopular thing, but if you're an open book and you talk about the why, and you keep what's best for kids as your sort of guiding star, then you're going to make the right decisions. So I can't say I would always side with teachers. I can't say I would always side with the superintendent. I think I would always do what's best for kids.
I'll keep asking.
Go ahead.
So Cavendish is always known to be very open, passionate community, very involved, because Cavendish is the heart of our community, the school. Can you share a little bit about the passion that you have around education and how you're going to bring some of that to Cavendish?
I find real joy in being in school. I get a lot of nourishment from watching kids flourish. I think that, especially now, social emotional state of our kids is super important, so that they can access their learning and feel safe. And I think that that's always been a passion of mine, is to create a safe space for kids where they can do hard things, where they can learn how to be brave. And I've always honored that. And that's sort of the passion I bring I would hope that I would bring that not just to the kids, but to this staff. And I know that they're already there a lot of the time. I'm very joyful. I don't know how else to say that. I'm lighthearted and I'm joyful, and I just feel like sharing that with kids always helps bring them up to that feeling, to that level. I like to, even though I have a line in the sand and I'm very clear and firm, I do like to laugh and have a good time. And I think that if you can do that in the confines of your mission, then that's a good day. And I really want kids to want to be in school. And so having them look forward to coming every day and knowing that there's going to be someone on their side in the office when they need them. So I think I value my relationships with not just my colleagues, but with my students. And that's kind of a strong suit of mine, is the relationship piece. And I think that's what I would really bring to this community.
Hi. Hi. I'm Donna. What things will be essential for you to do in your first 90 days at school?
Listen and learn, I think, would be essential in the first 90 days. Listening to the voices of your community, find out what's important to people, what they value, learning from them, hearing what they say. listening to the staff, finding out where they're at right now. I think everyone is pretty stressed out, and being a sounding board and hopefully a support to overextended teachers, and students too. I think that everyone's in a bit of we're all sort of in a little bit of a damaged place right now with the state of the world. And so listening to people, learning from what they tell you, and letting that guide you moving forward.
Could you tell me, please, about a challenge you've had and how you overcame it professionally?
A professional challenge? I worked as part of a very tight, collaborative team. And that can be very challenging because every person is a cog that can't go out of whack for the system to work. And years back, I had a colleague on that team who was an amazing teacher. She was a real powerhouse, but she had trouble being part of the group, being part of that team mentality. And that was really hard. That threw a wrench in the works for our team because we were so collaborative and so tight. And one of the ways we overcame it was we reached out for help. We actually, at the time, were partnering with Tarrant Institute, and one of our Tarrant consultants came in and helped us establish norms as a team so that we could voice what was important to us, what was essential to us as a team. So that helps shed some light on the problems, and then walked us through some protocols to help us really pick apart where we were falling down as a group, and holding that mirror up to ourselves, because it's never just one person, right? It's always a little bit of a shared responsibility. So having each of us hold up that mirror to ourselves and try to figure it out. And so it was really difficult, and it took a lot of self-reflection. And ultimately, I think that we resolved our differences and were able to pull together and create some really awesome opportunities for students.
Do you think it's important to know students' stories and what they've been through?
I think it's not just important, it's essential. It's something that it's impossible to do your job well as an educator if you don't have that information, because you have to know where kids are coming from when you're in order to help them. If a student is acting out, maybe there's something troubling them in their lives that you should know about, that you should support them with to help them be successful. So it's not only important, I think it's the most important.
Thank you. Joey, I'm going to give you 4 sentence starters. First one, when I'm criticized.
That's the whole start?
That's the start.
Okay. When I'm criticized, I listen carefully and try to consider someone else's point of view, and where they're coming from. And reflect on myself, why that would be so.
When I'm not sure about something,
I ask for help. I'm never afraid to ask for help. I think that that's important.
when I'm told what to do.
When I'm told what to do, I don't know how to answer that because it's situational. So I guess I would consider what I'm being told and decide whether that's the right course of action.
And when someone doesn't agree with me,
when someone doesn't agree with me, I respect them and discuss possibilities for resolution. I think people shouldn't always agree with me. I think that would make a very boring situation. So I welcome oppositional opinions and respectful discourse. I think that's what makes us think harder about situations.
Thank you.
If you were to take a self-assessment on your career, what would have been your strengths, and could you identify your weaknesses that you could have improved on?
Okay, so thus far, I would say a strength would be personal connections. I think supporting others personally, students, staff members, that would be for sure a strength. A challenge, I think the ever-present challenge of educators is being able to meet the needs of every student that crosses your path. You're always wishing you could have done better to provide for all the skills that present themselves in your room. So I think that's something that, as a lifelong learner, I always strive to do better by my students. And it's a tall order every year. But I think that if you don't constantly strive to do better by kids and grow in that regard, then you're doing them a disservice.
I have to ask a library question.
Okay.
Do you think having a school community library that's basically a public library that the school uses would be a help or a hindrance?
So just so I'm understanding it, you're asking if the library itself should be open to the public or not?
Well, we have a school community library that is open to the public.
Okay.
And so 3 days a week, it's open to the public, and Mondays and Fridays, it's open to the school.
Oh.
So do you think that that would be?
I would say that that sounds to me like it would have its pros and cons. I think that the students in the building should have first shot, for lack of a better word, at using the library and to its fullest. I think it's nice to invite community members in any way that we can to make them feel like part of our building. But I imagine that would be a scheduling challenge. I would want that library to be open and available to kids to work in, to not just to get books, but to use as a space, a quiet space for projects, you know. Certainly in my room when we're making videos, kids often say, can I go to the library where it's quiet and do my recording? So it sounds to me like that would have challenges as well as benefits, so.
Lauren, did you not explain to her the situation with our library here?
I have not had a conversation that goes through those specific things. Yeah.
Joey, did you have an opportunity to meet?
She's been here before.
Tomorrow. Joey, you have not met with Kata yet? No. Okay.
Her school visit is tomorrow.
She's visiting so that was an unfair question.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
No. And just so you know, this is a municipal library, okay? That the school uses, but it is a municipal library for the public.
Gotcha. So I can see how that would be challenging.
Well, it's working very well.
So we're on a proficiency grading level here at the school rather than letter grade, but I still think it's a very good question to ask as just a self-assessment as adults as we try to become better. But as an educator, what grade would you give yourself?
Proficient. Was there a better answer? No. I think that, I'm being glib, but, obviously there's always room for improvement. Everyone will tell you that. And if they're not telling you that, then they're not telling you the truth. There's always room for improvement. However, I've worked really hard my whole career. I've taken every opportunity to learn more, to grow, to learn new systems, new content, innovative ways to help support kids, to learn about laws, to really just provide the best that I can for students. So even though I was being glib, yeah, I think that I would say proficient.
Do you have questions for us?
No, you put me on the spot. I really don't. I'm not even sure what everybody's role here is in the community, so it's hard. Okay. It's hard for me
to. Kids in the school.
How many?
2. I've had 2 that have gone through the school and 2 that are still in.
Okay.
You have some grandparents here. You have community members here, students, teachers, faculty.
Yeah. So no, as a collective, I do not have a question for all of you put together. I just, like I say, I have deep roots in this area. I would be more than excited to help bring back some of our verve for learning that has been dampened over the last couple of years. I know that it has been tough to share leadership among 2 schools. And so I would just really welcome the opportunity to be here and help Cavendish grow.
Do you live in the area, Joey?
I do. I live just over the hill in Weston. Okay. And I've been in that exact location for about 8 years. But I've lived in this area for the past, gosh, how old is my son? 16 years. And before that, on and off over my whole adult life.
Joey, do you have some thoughts about how you would, as we come out of COVID, get the community to be involved in the school?
I do. I think that it's important to bring back, once it's safe, to bring back, concerts and showcases, bring parent volunteers back into the room, let our parents get a glimpse behind the curtain again, and really be partners in the education process. I think that's been lost over the last couple of years. I know that my relationships with parents have changed over the last couple of years because you just can't be in the same room. So I think that it's really important to open our doors wide again and really be bustling again, have it be a real bustling, vibrant community. Just like special events and again, like sports and all the things that parents should be involved in.
Thank you.
If I should do a musical number or something.
Okay. I'm the administrative assistant here. Okay, it's the first hour of the day.
Oh, boy.
I texted you and said I'm going to be late. You come in, the nurse is called out sick. 3 pairs are out.
Read my story is what you're saying?
This is my
sure.
daily life.
Yeah.
What's your first course of action?
It's a Tuesday is what you're saying. So how do you handle all that? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Creatively. I guess first thing is making sure that our kids are safe so that there's adults where they need to be in classrooms to make sure that the bulk of our kids are safe. Making sure, getting on the horn and seeing about substitutes if that's a viable option. I know substitutes are few and far between these days. And then just having to get creative, obviously stepping into the fray myself, covering whatever needs to be covered till we can properly fix the situation. But what you've described is like any given day over the last 2 years, we're always scrambling for coverage and to make sure that we have enough people spread around the building just to cover the classrooms sometimes. But yeah, all hands on deck, bringing in staff and helping them think creatively how we can redistribute ourselves to make sure that everybody's covered. Safety first, though, you know. Yeah, Jay.
Joy, we are beginning the trek towards personalized learning plans and student-led conferences. I think Floodbrook is a couple years ahead of us. Could you talk a little bit about what that looks like and what successes you've had or what bumps in the roads you've had and how you manage that?
Yeah, I would say that personalized learning plans have been an emotional roller coaster for educators, because every year they seem to sort of morph as to what the expectations are, and so that's been a little murky over the years. What we've sort of, for a while, we had kids holding on to work, and we made space in the day for them to work on their personalized learning plans and form their own goals and then reflect on whether they've met their goals. But it became a little heavy-handed, and the kids sort of lost interest. So now we really look towards keeping evidence of your learning, because you're the gatekeeper of your learning, and you're going to be the one who reports out to your parents. So twice a year we have student-led conferences. And I think that it's one of the best things we ever did. Because as teachers, we can communicate with parents whenever we want. And we know that you don't save it for the conference. If there's something great going on, you're going to report it out. If you have issues or there's struggles happening, you're going to bring parents in right at the get-go. So communication has never been an issue. But the conference is a time for students to really shine, and they get to, we've had them prepare, slideshows of their learning and have evidence. So this is an evidence of my learning in math. Why did I choose this piece of evidence? How does it show my growth? So that the kids are really getting to take ownership and share with the adults in their world. And one of the things we stress is, don't just pick the evidence of something that you did really well on, because maybe that was easy for you. Let's find the work that was a struggle for you. How did you overcome that? What was the end result? How did you get there? And so we've gotten major positive feedback from parents about the student-led conferences. And I would never go back, to tell you the truth. The teacher is the facilitator at the conference, basically. It's been amazing. The impact has been just rippling, and it's done in stages from kindergarten all the way through. The amount of involvement in how a student reports out obviously looks different in first grade than it does in middle school and sixth grade. But starting with that mindset when they're that old, and the fact that they're going to be the gatekeepers of their learning, and they're going to be the ones sharing it with mom and dad. Now that we've been doing it over several years, when they get to me in the middle school and they get to sixth grade, they're excited about how they're going to present themselves. It's kind of neat.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions? I would ask you, do you have a few things to say for a conclusion, and then we will draw things to a close.
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing me to come in and talk to you all tonight. Thank you all for braving the weather and coming out and asking your important questions. I definitely am excited about the prospect of being part of the Cavendish community again. And I hope what I bring to the table is expertise in our Vermont education system and just a real love for education. So I thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.
So feedback, right, either in writing, which is great, or you can go to the website and click on the link, or you can telephone me, or you can send me an email. Please get that to me so that we can in turn share with the board, which will be conducting interviews with both of our candidates tomorrow night.